The opinions, viewpoints, and beliefs presented on this program do not necessarily reflect those of the management, the affiliates and broadcast partners, or the sponsors. Listener discretion is advised.
And hello everyone. What a way to start the new show. Hello everyone and welcome to the new Scarefest Radio Body and Spirit. Presented by BlueLeafNaturals.com, a Kentucky proud company. Tonight, I've got Mark James coming on. Mark has been with me on my other shows, and we have great discussions, although we will never top the ones that we have while we're inebriated. But, that being said, I want to tell everybody what we're doing here. Scarefest Radio has been very, very great, and it's a lot of fun, but let's face it, we've got a lot of guests to dig through. So what we're trying to do is, we're actually paranormal guests. We've got so many of them. That we decided we better give them their own outlet, if you will. So, Scarefest Radio, Body and Spirit, we're going to concentrate on metaphysical and paranormal type guests. We're going to leave the ufology and cryptozoology where it was, but we're going to try to bring more of the paranormal over to the Body and Spirit label. Now, incidentally, yes, there is an inside joke. Let me get positioned here. I always called what I did online, or on the radio, when I talked about my own spirituality, metaphysical bullshit. And so I struggled for months trying to come up with a title for a show that would incorporate my own unique way of describing what I do and the way I think. And so don't think that the B and the S applies to my guest. It applies to me. And because that I don't always know what to believe. I think that's actually going to be something that will come up in tonight's conversation with Mr. Mark James. Now, of course, everybody, Mark James, he was on my Video Space show. He's been on Scarefest Radio before. He is with Akashic Awareness in Elizabethtown, Kentucky. He's the co-owner of that, and it's a would you describe that, Mark, as a metaphysical / spiritual? What all do you all do over there anyway?
A lot of crystals, a lot of stones, minerals. We have the ionic foot detox. We have the pulse electromagnetic field therapy with frequencies to address certain elements in the body, since we are energy. We have a biomat, which uses far infrared heat and amethyst crystals that you lay on it, so the far infrared heat goes 6 inches into your body. We have a crystal alignment. We have a 8-foot pyramid that people use for meditation. We have the Spooky 2 Rife, to where we can install frequencies into things, and we teach a lot of classes. And I think, you know what, Wes, it's all bullshit.
Yeah, but let's face it, we have to embrace the bullshit to get through life. That's the way I look at it. One reason I always put it that way, Mark, was, now I talk to a lot of psychics on these shows. Now, I do believe there is something beyond where we are now. And I have talked to a lot of psychics that claim to have the inside track on what that is, beyond the veil, if you will. And it's very rarely that I find two of them that agree more than, say, 75%. So somebody's got to be wrong. So if somebody's got to be wrong, I have no way of knowing who that is. I know what I believe. I know what I've experienced in the field. I know what my third eye, if you will, tells me. But I don't, in other words, I don't know how all that always, I'm not going to find out how all that jives until I shed off this mortal coil, as they say, and move to the great beyond, and all the other little analogies and colloquialisms that we use to describe where we're headed from here. Now tonight we are. He presented this topic to me as I am, and then the show notes actually self-realization. Now this is something that we've actually touched on in other areas, because really when you're talking about all this, you're talking about recognizing your spiritual self. Is that a fair way to dumb it down to my 5th grade reading level?
That's a fair way, yes.
So we're going to go through the notes a little bit here, and I'm not going to just read to people, but we are going to try to touch on something. Although, oddly enough, the part that I like best, you flipped on the bottom, so we're going to have to kind of, I want to get to everything. You started off the notes by saying, to know yourself. That sounds like, as you pointed out in your notes, that sounds like an easy thing to do, because we tend to, as the human condition is, we tend to look at the surface. Right. So go ahead and give me the you can use the analogies, but how should we look at ourselves, just based on right out of the bat, that statement?
Okay, well, I mean, the easiest way to look at yourself is, think of it this way. Say you're running in a park, you're jogging, and there's a low-lying limb, and you smack it, and next thing you know, you're like coming to, and there's a couple of benders hovering over you, and so forth, ask if you're okay. And then as you stand up, they're more than willing to give you help on getting home, but the caveat is that they have certain dogmas and rules and regulations that you have to follow. So are you better, how are you going to, what's the best way to get home? And it's either A, you can follow the dogmas, or B, you can awaken to who you really are. And so, know thyself is, if I ask, okay, Wes, can you, introduce yourself? You might say, or I would say, I'm a father. I was in the military. I was this, which are all labels. That's not who I am. And so when you get into self-realization, it's getting rid of all the third dimensional bullshit that we've grown accustomed to and the labels that we follow. And, in the outer mystery, one of the mysteries schools, the outer mystery was based on wanting to become a better person. And the inner mystery was the realization that you are not a person. And so, in a nutshell, I don't know if I threw too much or not enough, but, that's the whole focus of self-realization. And, oh, by the way, if you got 2 psychics that were 75%, I mean, that's good, because really, I like to tell people that your truth is your truth. What I say is true doesn't make it your truth.
Okay, now, what you just said, to me, though, is part of, I don't want to say it argues against what you said, but I do believe that we live in a 3-dimensional world. In other words, we have a living experience. Now, I don't, one of your lines here in the notes are, since we have learned to communicate, we have been embraced in lies, and lies that are acceptable to the human species. Right. I would argue that we are embraced in interpretations. In other words, if you go back, if you want to go back to religious times, what kind of host am I to come up with a term like that? No, biblical times, my interpretation of the Bible, since I was very young, has been, it was God's way of expressing complex ideas to people that had not thought of the digital watch yet. In other words, he had to dumb it down a lot. And so, I don't I do believe the Bible, for example, is the inspired word of God, but it's not a verbatim quote, if you will. So I believe that there are certain things that we need to process as humans and as interpretations. What would you consider a lie that we embrace?
All right, so that's a good point, that you're imperfect. And what I meant by that is before you learn to speak and learn to embrace communication, you are basically in your element. Now, once you get your name, you start to learn what is good and bad, and they say, okay, when you do something, well, good little boys don't do that. So what's being said, because you're looking at a 3-year-old, but the spirit, the soul, that's not 3 years old. And so when you say, well, good little boys don't do that, you're throwing in that they're imperfect. And the truth is that they are perfect. And I would say that any words that inspire are of God, in the sense that we know God, because I don't think we can define God. But, there is a saying, God is love, so therefore love is God. So if they're inspiring words, then they're coming from the heart chakra, which would be from source. Does that make sense?
Well, it made sense, but now I would argue. Okay, now, but I'm going to argue one of your points. I do not believe either at the spiritual level or especially at the physical level, but I do not believe that we are perfect beings even at the spiritual level. Now, the reason that I don't believe that is I do believe, yes, and I know that if the people that grew up with me in church are their ears will bleed if they listen to this, but I believe in reincarnation. And I actually believe in a biblical sense, which is a whole nother episode. But in other words, I believe my spirit in possibly, now, if you get in time, in linear time, I don't know how all that works. But I'm saying I believe that my existence on this earth is an effort to improve my spirit. Now, if I can improve my spirit, become an ascended being, however you want to look at it, that means at this point in time, my spirit is still not perfect. Where am I going wrong with that line of thinking?
The reincarnation, which, actually, that's wild you mentioned that, because it was actually part of the church dogma until 553. But like you said, that's another topic. I would say it's not that you're going wrong, because that's what you believe, but it's the fusion, the reincarnation. We come back in the essence to fuse the spirit with the physical, to show that there is this ability to, in this third dimensional reality, to basically live and be in essence of our trueness, and that's our divine heritage. To say that you're not perfect at the spiritual level is the saying that, the divine's not perfect, or that you are not part of the divine. And I'm saying that, we all are. And, it's not a religious thing. It's a thing. People may call it what they want, but to me, that you are perfect inside. And it's the fusing of getting this ideology that we're, if you want to look at it from a third dimensional standpoint, it's perfectly imperfect. How's that?
That's double talk. That's
well, okay.
Okay. We'll touch on that when we come back. We're at the 15-minute mark. I am trying to be on time tonight with my commercial breaks. Everybody, I want to thank my new sponsor, Blue Leaf Naturals, CBD oil and hemp products, because they've made the show possible. Everyone is talking about CBD oil. Most of us know that CBD is a cannabis compound that has significant medical benefits, but does not make people high. Its benefits include pain relief, anti-seizure properties, anxiety relief, fights cancer, reduces the risk of diabetes, and it is even used as a sleep aid. Blue Leaf Naturals CBD and hemp products are full-spectrum hemp extract oils. They use only hemp grown in Kentucky, supporting Kentucky farmers and businesses and helping you and your family stay healthy and well. Blue Leaf Naturals, created with care from seed to shelf. Visit their website at blueleafnaturals.com. Blue Leaf Naturals, a Kentucky proud company. And welcome back, everybody, to the premiere episode of Scarefest Radio's Body and Spirit, presented by Blue Leaf Naturals. I guess the way I would explain, and don't pull that. Well, that's what no. Go ahead, pick apart my beliefs. That's why I'm here. Okay. I put it out there. I believe that both in the physical world and the spiritual world, there are a lot of moving parts.
Right.
In other words, just like with the reincarnation thing, I believe that I'm here on this earth to learn some lesson, or possibly to teach somebody else some lesson. But either way, it's part of the progression, and my spirit guides try to keep me from tanking, if you will. One of your show notes here, one of your analogies is about picture you're looking out into the ocean, and then if you look out 200 yards and go straight down, how calm the sea is. Unless, see now maybe this is just me being a pessimist, but to me the moving parts are, okay, I can look out. I don't know what's going on under the water. There could be a volcano underneath the water. There could be a shark eating somebody. So I guess what I'm saying is I have to deal with the physical world. I have to deal with it in the best way. And I do believe that we are all obligated to be the best person in the physical world that we can be. Am I looking at it backwards? Should I worry more about letting my spirit make me a better person? Or, because right now I'm looking at it, this person is here, this meat sack is here to make my spirit a better, whatever the spirit is.
Okay. Well, I just want you mentioned your church friends earlier. They would be very proud. Wes, and this is just my theory of what we're talking about, is that you're still stuck in fear of this. You got these ideas. And that's exactly what the outer mystery, the whole thing with how religion and Christianity ran rampant was, they took the outer mystery, which is, again, to become a better person. And then when Constantine and Rome, made it the religion of the land. And so with that, Christianity inherited some of the Roman ideas and so forth. But as they spread out, and then the first council creates like the Gnostic ideas of being heresy. Well, there was no one to teach them the inner mysteries. And so everything you've mentioned, that's exactly how we've thought for the last 2,000 years. And it's not a religious thing. I mean, religions are where everything is created with man's concept, man's mindset. To me, your spirit, the divine piece of you, not the soul, the spirit, is perfect. It's the fusing of the perfection in seeing a third dimensional world where we have choices. In everything that we do, there's, it's the cause and effect of a choice. And so you can either choose to believe that, it's not, you can choose to believe it's the physical making the spirit more, but to me, that's just backwards, because, there's like when people would say they would do, it's like soul retrieval. To me, soul or spirit, it's like your spirit's perfect. If you look at perfectly imperfect, imperfect is with a twist of looking at it, it's I'm perfect. And so, but we get trapped into these things that we're not perfect. And so we're always wanting to become perfect, or we're always wanting to become happy. And so we create these personas. And that's what we walk around in each incarnations with this persona. And the whole idea is if you choose to come and reincarnate again, it's learning to fuse the spiritual aspect of your truth with the physical aspect of this reality. We talk reality is illusion. I was going to mention this because, your other shows in the paranormal, if we only see 0.0036% of the light spectrum, that means that's like 99.6 or 0.4% of shit we don't see. And yet we're always living in fear based on, something that some guy with a comb over told us. And, I don't really believe that I believe the Bible is a great sacred text. I don't believe it's God's word. I don't believe in a God that is going to tell me that you either have to love men or women, or, hey, you know what? It's okay if I have 8 wives and a whole concubine over here. And if my wife does something, I can just take her out and kill her. I mean, we can cherry pick shit all day, but I don't believe in that. And so I'm just saying, but if it's
nor
your
do
truth,
I. I said, nor do I, oddly enough. And FYI, I can give you a list of people that are convinced I'm going to burn in hell.
Well, you're not.
And the reason I know there is a list of them out there is I actually witnessed this little thing on Facebook one night where they were convinced that people that watched a movie were going to be possessed by demons. And I said, if you can get possessed by a demon by watching a movie, then what I'm doing, I am the heretic of all time. Now something you mentioned, okay, soul retrieval, that is, now correct me if I'm wrong, that's based on the idea of the split soul, which falls into the whole multiverse theory, correct? In other words, okay, once again, 5th grade reading level. We go along, and for whatever reason, let's say, and it's not minor decisions, it's, like, oh, I'm not going to have coffee today. No, it's, I'm going to, I'm going to jump off this bridge today. I'm just going to do it. And, but in the multiverse, you thought better of that. And so there are 2 timelines, kind of like a branching tree for each one of us. And your soul, in other words, both of those things, even though you might have lived through it, both of those, a piece of your soul, or it's not even a piece, it's your soul, but it's split. It's a carbon copy, because the soul's a soul. But, right. Sometimes, now this is how I've heard it explained, like, I can't think of his name now, but he was a famous psychic, and he said he had actually communicated with his own ghost from a previous life. And he couldn't process that, why he would find his own ghost. And I'm like, okay, one of your personages, your life experiences, left a ghost behind, and now it's still wandering the earth. Boy, I just said a whole lot of stuff that makes no sense whatsoever. But then when we're talking about soul retrieval, isn't that the basic concept that our soul actually breaks off into pieces that are not really whole until they're reunited?
All right. Oh, you're gonna get me in trouble, people, because I like to look at, the word soul retrieval to me, it's kind of like, all right, since we were on the topic earlier, the word sin. The original Greek meaning is to miss the mark, to me, which means you don't understand what the hell I'm saying. And so, but then it evolves over time. And to me, soul retrieval, because I believe anything of the divine, there's nothing to retrieve. But I believe, and I got twisted to where you're more knowledgeable in ghost hunting and things. It's an energetic imprint. And so people can go and retrieve, because, we've all been the good, the bad, the ugly. We've all done things, because that's how we get this whole human experience, and still in the vortex of things are able to find our own divineness, if you will. So to me, I don't use the word soul retrieval, because I think anything of the divine you're not going to lose it. It's not going to go anywhere. It's perfect. It's the energy is the human body that we leave behind, and it's to go, and really the way I always explain to people is so that you can better understand certain things that A, may have happened to you, or B, that you may have done to someone else in a previous incarnation, or maybe this. When you break it down, it's the best idea that you had at that time. So it's a way of accepting you fully for who you are, because that's also a big thing on self-realization, is I have to accept myself in this physical body without that, there's no point going any further. There is no realization. It's just, me, which is then it's a whole paradox because, it's separating. And so, the whole thing self too is you got to look deeper, I guess, and that's what I was trying to say about the ocean. You're right. There may be a volcano at the bottom of the ocean. But have you ever noticed when you look at the footage when there's heat and stuff, it's still very calm. I mean, you see the heat and the fumes rising. It's the surface. We have a tendency to live on the surface where all the waves are. And yet our truth is that it's very peaceful within. And so, shit, I don't even know where I'm going with this anymore. My mind was
I have accomplished my mission for the night. Okay, well let's just take it back down to the perfect spirit, if you will. That we are deep down perfect beings. Let's go back to what I said about I believe that we are meant to be perfect beings, okay. But I don't believe that at any given time I have the ability to reflect that. That's the way I'll put it. I don't understand how I can reflect the perfect being that you say I am, that I say I'm meant to be, until I have reached that. Let's start from there and work our way out.
Okay. First thing you got to do is stop defining things. Because when you're trying to reach something, then you're definitely taking yourself out of the moment. When you take yourself out of the moment, where's your energy? Well, it's not in the moment. I'm trying to become this perfect being. And what I'm telling myself then is that I am not this perfect being. And the whole thing is a process of progress. And especially in the Western world, we want everything to be like light switch. We want to say, I'm waking up, I am divine, it's a perfect boom, the light switch is on. Well, shit, if that happens, you ascend. So obviously there's a mission here. And so I would just say, intellect can trip you up. If everything's got to be explained to everyone without that, again, that faith in yourself, well then, you point them back to that they can't see over 99% of what's happening around them. And that's pure science. So you stop defining what you want to be and accept who you are. And that is the first step of the whole process. And knowing that, hell, eternity is a long time. In the Bhagavad Gita, there's Krishna tells Arjuna, there's never been a time that you have not been, nor will there ever be a time you will not be. So, it's funny how we have this linear idea of time. And so we want point A to B, and it's this amount of time. And if we don't get there, we're not doing well. And, you can't, that's not how time's an illusion, the whole thing of the Alpha and Omega in Revelations, when it's the doomsday. No, I'm the beginning and the end. It's time circular. It's nothing. Anyways, where are we going? Is it commercial time? I'm getting all fired up. Let's do it.
It is commercial time. Oddly enough, everybody will be right back with Body and Spirit. Do you feel lost in life? Do you seem to be stuck in emotions that are not yours? Is your home not the sanctuary it should be? Contact Spirit Mechanics, where they take a team approach to your metaphysical and spiritual problems. Spirit Mechanics specializes in aura cleansing, stone attunement, attachment removal, and house cleansings. Spirit Mechanics tailors their approach to your individual spiritual path and needs. Find them every month at Lexington, Kentucky's Mystical Fair, mysticalfairlex.com, or on Facebook by searching Spirit Mechanics, that's MECHANIX. Spirit Mechanics, for your spiritual health and well-being. And welcome back, everybody, to Scarefest Radio Body and Spirit, presented by BlueLeafNaturals.com. BLU LeafNaturals.com. I need to tell them they need to make sure they get the other domain, because people are going to listen to me on the radio and go to the wrong place. we're talking tonight with Mark James, and we're talking about I am. We're talking about self-realization, and I'm trying to wrap my little 12th grade educated mind around the topic here. First of all, as far as linear time, I think I will submit to you that is a result of the three-dimensional world that our physical bodies are in. In other words, that is a limit to our physical bodies, not to our spiritual body. That I will agree with you on there. The my thing about the perfection of spirit, I fear that if we embrace that our spirit is perfect, I fear that it will make us lazy people. It will make us, I think that's why God didn't go into great detail about reincarnation, because everybody would sit around going, I'll catch you next time. In other words, I'll be a whoremonger and murderer because it's fun. Next time I'll get it right. So, that's where I have trouble wrapping around any chance of perfection as long as I'm sitting here in this physical body. So where were we even going with this?
Well, okay. Next time I'll get it right. And that's a good reason not to believe in, not to push reincarnation, because if people believe in reincarnation, next time you get it right, you can't build a stronghold of fear. Ignorance is one of the three poisons they teach it from the Buddha, and ignorance creates insecurities. And I always tell people from an Akashic standpoint, you redefine perfection, because when we look at perfection in an earthly body, we look at avatars such as Jesus, Krishna, or Buddha. No, you see, the whole point is you have to be perfect 51% of the time, because you have to allow yourself to be human. And that's the thing, is that, it's actually opposite, Wes, that complacency is where people go when the spiritual awakening is too difficult. And they go to where, okay, I can just follow these rules and all will be fine, and then I'll manifest whatever is within accordance to these rules. It takes a very brave person, A, to agree to reincarnate into a human form, and B, to open themselves up to a more spiritual path than one that is filled with dogmas of religion. If that makes any sense.
No, that first damn thing you said the whole show that makes sense. No, I'm kidding. The dogma of, and I don't want anybody to think that in any way, religion in its purest form, I think is a great thing, because I don't think that if you actually follow a religion that, how can I put this? Because there are some bad religions out there. I mean, there are, or at least there are bad interpretations of religion. I have no doubt in my mind. Even in the Christian viewpoint, I tell everybody, concentrate on the New Testament, take it in context. A lot of the letters were written to people. They were about specific what would Jesus do? It's a cliche, but when you look at things that way, at least it gives you the guidelines that I think make for a good religious life. Now that being said, once again, I have no idea where I was going.
Can I say something?
Sure.
Oh, okay. I didn't know, because you were telling me the new process, so I'm sitting here waiting. Okay, instead of that, what would Jesus do? Why don't you ask, what would my higher self do?
The reason I would...
The one thing you have to, not you, the one thing with the whole beginning of self-realization is we have to take responsibility. And it's easy, and, I'm not busting anything. You mentioned religion. I'll just say, the truth cannot go wrong, but when the truth is embraced or surrounded by agendas, it's no longer true, it's a lie. And so that's why I tell people, they talk about false prophets. And I know this is probably going down, oh shit, the religious. It's not, because Profit has nothing to do with the church. It's if you hear something and it doesn't resonate, it's not your truth. I always tell people, the heart chakra, if you lead with your heart, you'll never go wrong. And that's if what is being said does not resonate, well then, let it go. It may resonate with the person that's saying it, and that's fine, but their truth doesn't have to be your truth. And it's taking personal responsibility and ownership of, this is my time and this persona and this creation, this mask that, we call Mark, that, well, I either can piss it away and let someone else control it, or I can take responsibility for it. And that's what I'm trying to get, because the whole thing about self-realization is it's just to get people to get things that click and let them go down their own rabbit hole to find their truth. And you know what? It may be sitting at the pew on Sunday. I don't know. But if it is, that's perfect for them. It's no judgment.
Now, believe it or not, I actually agreed with what you just said.
That's twice.
That's twice. That's at least twice this show. Because the only caveat I would put is, now I like that you said, what would my higher self do? But then I process it and said, my higher self would do, well, I don't know, what would Jesus do? In other words,
why Jesus? You're only going back 2,000 years, and yet.
Okay, true. I'm only going back 2,000 years, but I do believe. Well, I believe in role models. I believe in them in the physical sense, and I believe in them in the spiritual sense. In other words, where you seek perfection, I seek betterment. And I just believe with all my heart that he was a much, much better person than I was.
Perfection. I am perfect. I'm trying to fuse the physical with my divine perfection.
And we're right back where we started because
But I can tell you the earthly part of Mark is nowhere near, just like you, I have shit that rolls in my head. I'm not, and that's why it's a process. And it's the ability to embrace who you are at this very moment and know that, what, every step forward, there's the old Zen saying, 1,000 whatever journey starts with the first step. Well, I always said, yeah, but make sure you keep stepping.
Absolutely. Now, you said that they're in the notes here. We want to make sure we get some of this stuff in. Was behind all we believe. So you wanted to get into the following. I think we've now without giving everybody just a history lesson here. I do struggle. One of the things here is the Gnostic text. I do struggle with that because I know that there were a lot of quote unquote books of the Bible that are sitting in the basement of the Vatican now, I guess. In other words, King James and his minions decided at some point these are the ones we're going by. And some of the Gnostic. Why am I having trouble with the word that I've actually used on occasion? Gnostic text actually contradict. Maybe that's an overreach, but go into more detail, if nothing else, about some of the concepts that we're talking about tonight.
Right.
And then contradict things that we've been taught since we were knee high to a bunny rabbit. Why? I guess the question I'm going to ask now is, why did you feel that was so important to bring out when we're talking all this spirituality stuff about the perfect spirit and all? What is important about looking at the Gnostic text?
Well, the one thing is, and then anyone who argues the Gnostic text, and you're right, it was Constantine in 334, the Council of Nicaea, that made that Gnosticism heresy. But you can go further back. In Plato's Timaeus, Plato himself, he alluded to a lesser God, if you will, that created this universe. And the Gnostic idea, and the reason it's part of the way I felt it was part of this self-realization is the Gnostics had an idea of, why is it that they walk around, they see suffering, they see people who are living large, and then people, and how can a God have this, young baby die? And so they saw that it was an imperfect world. And so they went deeper, and the whole Gnostic idea of creation is amazing. In the Sacred Gospel of Thomas, where Jesus slowly talks about knowing thyself and the importance of everything is within, when you read a lot of the Gnostic texts, it's like, holy shit, what are they talking about? But then you go to Thomas, and that's the very second verse where Jesus says, seek and keep seeking. It's funny. People say, why do you seek now? Well, it used to be that those, to have a life worth living was one seeking knowledge. And today it's complacency. But, Jesus said in the Sacred Gospel of Thomas that seek and keep seeking until you find. And when you find, you will be, lack of a better word, dumbfounded. But when you're dumbfounded, know that you will rule over all. And to me, I take that as, yeah, you see this and you're like, it's hard to wrap the human mind around, but then it adds a lot of sense. And a lot of the Gnostic texts are your relationship, that everything is within. Whenever you want to have a thing on dissecting the other, a lot of the New Testament's the theory of Paul. So I felt it very important to go back and look at just not that, but then, Hindu texts, that there are other things out there that are pointing to one's perfection and their divine heritage. Because if I sat and I said, hey, let's make a foundation over these 66 books. Well, I've done nothing else but created a Bible study, and that's not what this is about. It's not even about religion. It's about opening up and opening the mind. There's a saying that the mind is like a parachute. It's best when open. And so let everything come in and then release what is not yours. I say it's smart spaghetti test because, when I actually cooked in college, it's, you throw spaghetti on the wall. If it sticks, it's ready. If it doesn't, well, throw it up there. And if it sticks, then it resonates with you. And if it doesn't, that's fine. There's no judgment. It's just I wanted to throw more out there in this study so that people can come to their own conclusions, but have a lot more information to do so.
And that makes perfect sense. And you brought up earlier, at least, you brought up earlier about my past as a paranormal investigator. Mm-hmm. Now I kind of left the field as far as being active in the field to take on what I'm doing now. I felt my next steps of enlightenment. Now, there's certain things I do on the spiritual level, but I didn't feel like stomping around dark buildings was going to educate me the true meaning of spirit, if you will. So that's how I got into doing these internet radio shows, was I wanted to find out from as many people as I could what their belief structure is in the paranormal, in the spiritual world, and then let my brain process it and see what makes sense to me. So that's why I'm saying I agree with you. And just like tonight, I'm not disagreeing with you. I'm trying to apply it. I'm actually trying to apply it with the interpretation of the world around me that I have to deal with. Because well, let's face it, I'm done too old to change too much. So I have to kind of fit everything into my box, as it were. So even if I think outside the box, at some point, it has to fit in this box.
But,
so,
Wes.
Yes.
I was a lieutenant colonel in the Army, raised Southern Baptist, and decided to take responsibility for what I believe in, a 180 change. You're never, that's another thing, is that age is the illusion, because you're tying it to who you are in this physical realm. But, and that's your choice. But I'll tell you that, the paranormal, everything to me is metaphysical. It really is. Quantum physics shown that nothing, the table here, it feels physical and, could break my hand, but yet at a quantum level, it's not. So, I think there is a lot of spirituality in what you did formerly, because to me, everything's metaphysical and everything is a piece to the puzzle. And so that's why I'm not one that says, I try to get out of this. I talk a lot about religion at the store when I'm talking to people because that's what holds someone much in fear in this present time. But yet the whole concept of the metaphysics and finding out who we are and the self-realization, it's not religious at all. I mean, it's finding our truth. And in that, I'm just saying too, in ghost hunting, there's metaphysical, spiritual connection. And I mean, to me, everything is connected. And to say it's not that's just stupid bullshit that we've been listening to for the last 2,000 years. I mean, that's just, to me, everything's connected. I don't even know why I said that, but kudos, brother.
All right, we're going to take our final commercial break, everybody. You're watching Scarefest Radio Body and Spirit, presented by BlueLeafNaturals.com.
Coyote Chris Sutton.
Shamanism.
Spiritual advisement.
Paranormal investigations.
Inspirational presentations.
Bringing light to the darkest places for over 20 years. Go to CoyoteChris.com to learn more. Okay, we're in the final segment here. I wish we'd had time to actually, because, okay, once again, sacred geometry, dude, that is a whole nother topic that takes it. I had someone try it.
And that's the beauty of this is that, when we do this, the self-realization is, well, you and I have talked many times, that my mind it's like a squirrel, that it's always going to be bouncing around. So nothing is in this sequential order that we've been programmed. So sacred geometry, the Vestas Pisces that, was really the Pythagorean with two circles overlapping and it's the fish. And again, it's all part of showing that everything is connected in this whole path of self-realization. Because to me, if you don't know who you are, well, you just don't know who you are.
Okay, now I'm gonna try to dumb it down here now for the last segment. How does self-realization that somewhere deep inside of me there is this perfect being that apparently doesn't smoke and is not going to burn
Okay,
in
why
hell?
do you say that? Because you've been told smoking's bad, right?
No, the Surgeon General, I guess. I mean, okay, I know that when I walk up a flight of stairs and have to stop and catch my breath, I know smoking's not good for the physical form.
Do you run?
If I'm chased?
Well, I'm just saying, again, that's something that is projecting outside, and we do that so much is that, well, I'm having this issue because of this, which is outside of me, and that's actually the thesis for victimization, that I'm a victim of my health because they told me they put toxins. Well, what if they didn't tell you there were toxins in those, and would you might be? I had NCOs
now I would argue
and
that I'm taking responsibility by admitting that I have a really bad habit. I would argue that I'm taking responsibility for what I've done to my body.
You're human, and it's a habit that you choose to partake, and I see you have that right.
Well, yeah. Now that I agree with you big time on. Little side note here. Now, like I said, I am not going to endorse smoking, but I guarantee you there are a bunch of people that drop dead at like 98 degrees who smoked, and on their death certificate, they're in a statistic somewhere died of smoking. Just saying.
What's the opposite of death?
The opposite of death? Still living.
See, I would say it's birth because they're both transition points. Life is everlasting. And again, that's just it's still fear.
I will cede you that point. Except in the case of I guess you could say birth certificate's the opposite of a death certificate.
George Bush smoked.
I guess you could say that.
And I'm not endorsing smoking either. I'm just, it's your thing.
Who would I be without it? Anyhow, where I was trying, I don't even know how I got off on that. Where I was trying to go is, how does self-realization that I am a perfect being how does that actually, how should that reflect, or what benefit is that to me?
Well, one, when you realize that you are, then it allows you a opportunity to see yourself and embrace yourself for who you are now, who you see in the physical form. So many of us, we either say we're too fat, we're this, because since we were young, we were told what is perfect and what is not perfect. And if we don't fit within that so-called perfection, then we see ourselves as imperfect. So it's part of the whole acceptance. And that's why through the inner and outer mysteries is, one, it's realizing that this physical incarnation, this, a persona was a mask. When the Gnostics put on plays and pageantry, they wore masks and they called them personas. So this persona that I am Mark James, it's just that. It's a persona. And it's a step that when I realize in this process that I have the divine heritage and connect with that, then it's an outlet for me to then get over these ages of imperfection and to start to embrace who I am right now and accept that, and it's a challenge. And that's why I said it's actually easier not to.
Now, The question is, the way you just described that, I would argue that would make it really easy, which is what I went back with about reincarnation. If I embrace that I'm a perfect being, then I think that stops me from seeking self-improvement.
Easy. We've been told that nothing is easy, and so there's another thing that's been put in our minds. It's easy when you say it like that. Now try and execute. And that's where the difficulty comes in. And that's why it's easier to shun away and go back to what is more comfortable than to address something that on the surface is very easy. And yet, you still, how do you talk to yourself? I realize that I have this divine perfection, that's my truth. And yet, if I talk to you the way I talk to myself, we wouldn't be having this conversation, because there's no way in hell you'd ever want to talk to me. And so it does. But that's because we've been told that nothing is easy. And you're right, on the surface, it's very easy. Executing and embracing it, though, fighting, lifetimes and lifetimes of being told it's not, and that this is perfection and you're not, well, that's where it becomes the challenge of, like breaking out of the shell, if you will, or, each life puts a different crust on us, and we just got to break out. You drop a diamond in the dirt, it doesn't lose value. It's still perfect. And yet that diamond was at one point in a rock under mud and all this other crap. Well, look at that each, if you look at a diamond mill full above, there's all those different lines. It's like each one of those could be a different lifetime. And so you're getting in and it's muddy and you find the little thing, but there's a huge rock. You got to chip it away. Well, the diamond always existed. And so that's the whole process of this self-realization. Hey, it sounds easy, but when you have to try and work it and execute it and accept that, hey, I've gained 10 pounds or I've lost 20 and I have to get my belt that I love that you guys made readjusted because, I'm not perfect, that's where it becomes a challenge. And so it is all just a step in the process of progress.
Now, to torture your analogy.
Go for it.
That diamond was once a lump of carbon. Was that lump of carbon perfect?
You were once a forethought.
If things had went probably the way the universe would have preferred, never mind. That's a joke that's on Facebook.
Referred to the true spirit as forethought, so I just thought I'd throw that out there. And because you can if anything.
Well, yeah, but that's what I have to do if I'm going to have a radio show. If I just accept everything at face value.
Okay, it was energy. How's that? The diamond has energy. And so it's always been there. It's just we fall into this trap of seeing that well, it's less energy because it's been in the mud. No, it's still a diamond. And before that, it was carbon and whatever else you were talking about.
Actually, it was carbon, and then somehow we got about my mom and dad having sex. I don't know how we went with it. Anyway, Mark, this is why I have you on. It's just a lot of fun. It's just a lot of fun going down these rabbit holes with you. And I feel like I made less sense tonight than I actually have on some other times.
No, you actually made a lot of sense. I've been fighting this for a week, so I think you made a lot of sense. So I don't know, maybe that's a good thing though. You just got, you are more, but okay, I know it's your job, it's a show, but I love talking to you because you are a lot more aligned than you may lead to others to believe. And that's why I love talking to you, because I know you just play the devil's advocate sometimes, and that's beautiful.
Well, and that goes back to that box thing I was telling you about. I want to make sure that everything that I shove in that box belongs there. And so, yeah, I do. I like playing devil's advocate because in the paranormal world, when I'm having a paranormal experience, in other words, I'm talking to a ghost, however I'm doing it, whether it's in my head, dowsing rods or whatever, there is always this little voice in the back of my head going, bullshit, bullshit. And that way, I think it makes the experiences that I have, by examining them, I think it makes it more genuine. And therefore, when somebody throws an idea at me, I like to pick it apart. And that way, going back to what you said, I can take the truths that I find fit me and bring them in. So there.
The human mind likes validation.
Oh, absolutely. And validation, acceptance, and all that good stuff. Well, we are at the end of the show.
I was just say real quick, the whole victim things. You're talking about the ghosts and all. You know how the devil's depicted with the goat head, right? Well, that's where you get the scapegoat.
I actually didn't know that. I actually didn't know that. And personally, I think that the devil, if he is an actual, to apply the devil to an actual being, I would think he would just be the absolute most handsome person, like Lucifer on the TV show.
Oh yeah, it's a great show.
Charming and beautiful, because sin has to be appealing.
Well, and I was just throwing that, but that's how our mind is. And so that's why, it's this whole validation, this whole projecting the fault. I couldn't have done it. So something, it was just, it had no real mark on the conversation. I just wanted to throw it out.
Now, one last thing I do want to get to. Akashic Awareness in Elizabethtown, Kentucky.
Yes.
Google them, find them. And this is something Layla threw out there because she thought I was just going to spend the show talking about hemp products. I understand now you all are a dealer or a distributor of the
distributor sounds a lot better than dealer.
Especially when we're talking about cannabis products. I got you. BlueLeafNaturals.com, but yes, Akashic Awareness. If you're in the E-Town area, there you go. There's some place you can
or
get these products.
At the Mystical Fair in Lexington.
Absolutely. That's a whole other ad I got to do for them.
Oh, okay, sorry.
Yeah, MysticalFairLex.com. That's another place you can pick this up. But the main thing is Blue Leaf Naturals, and there's no E in it at all, come to think of it. BlueLeafNaturals.com. Everybody, this has been the show. This is where Body and Spirit's going. I'm going out there. I'm going to talk about whatever comes up and do it in my own way. Thanks for watching.